Welcome back to the dopest show you won't get sick of. I'm Spencer. This is Sasha. Spent most of my 20s in federal prison, but I've been off heroin since April 9, 2010. Got a lot of stories about the stupid stuff I did to get put in prison. I've also got a lot of stories about the crazy stuff that happened while I was actually in prison. And God forbid you end up in prison. You want to make some of the same mistakes I made. So, there are a number of girls that I know that ended up doing stuff they'd never do. Sometimes just end up being a girlfriend of a dealer. You know, that's something I saw a number of times. Sometimes they're on Backpage. You know, that's something that happened to a number of them too. Ones you'd never guess. Ones from wealthy families. You know, doctors as parents and stuff like that. Grew up in $500,000, $1 million houses. And then end up on, living in some crap house with a dealer so they can get unlimited supply. There are a number of things that happen in addiction. Typically, with males, with boys, you either see robbing, stealing, sometimes robbing pharmacies. I saw a few of my friends, the same night they were kicked out of the house, 3 different people I can think of that robbed a pharmacy the exact same night. What happens to girls a lot of time when girls get kicked out of the house, they don't have, they're not going to go try to strong arm somebody. They can't. So they end up calling, place to place and stuff like that, or going to there's stuff that people do when they're in desperate situations is my point. Now the one I want to talk a little bit more the progression of what I personally saw and what I personally heard and how it happened. Everybody's got a different story, but ultimately it's all the same. Addiction makes you do stuff that's crazy, and a lot of times for girls that ends up in some bad stuff, and it ends up in bad situations. When you got somebody in addiction, not only are they at risk from the other addicts that are in that life, piece of trash. You get a piece of trash who's no good on a guy who's on dope anyway, it makes them even worse, okay? Not everybody's like that, even on dope, I still was, I held it together better than a lot of people I saw, but, I got bad myself, but nothing like that. But there are ones that I heard stories about. And also, there are guys that aren't even using. Adults in position of power that know who's going to believe that drug addict girl over me. I'm an upstanding member of the community, and they know that they can get away with doing something they shouldn't do, whether it be suggestive or whether it be, forceful, and that's wrong. You see it a lot at these Christian underage girl rehabs. There's a specific one I've got in mind. I'm not going to mention it, but it's happened a number of times. The Christian rehabs I don't agree with anyway. It's nothing to do with the religion. I'm Christian myself, but they don't treat the mental health thing. They basically try to pray the addiction away, and that is just leaving a number of problems. But anyway, get to it. The girl I'm talking about grew up with, knew her, good-looking girl, well-to-do family, grew up in a nice house, and I'm surfing couch to couch selling dope, supplying my habit. I'm at my friend's house. Now, he's one of my best friends growing up. It's his dad's house, and we're on the upper floor of it. And this guy comes over that we know. He looks like something that came out from under a bridge. I mean, he looks rough. Rough. And she walks in with him, which it wasn't typical, because you usually saw her with, normal people, stuff like that. This guy looked crazy. Now, the whole time they're in there, they're getting some stuff. He's paying for her, hoping for something back, I'm sure. But the implication wasn't there wasn't anything promised by her. He calls her, "Hey, want to go do this?" And she's like, "Okay, sure." Some people are naive in it. Now, the whole time we're over there in that house that they're getting ready to buy it, it's the first time they've come together. They came together many times after that. He's trying to get her to go in the bathroom and take a picture of herself so that he can have on his phone. Like begging her, like, "Come on." And she's like, trying to brush it off and everything. And he did it so much and so many times that me and my friend, whose dad's house it was, were like, "Dude, come on with that." Like he's begging her for go take a picture of herself. And we're like, man, come on with that. It's not cool. Stop that. It's getting a little weird. It's getting a little annoying. You know, stop. So nothing happened. Well, sure enough, he ends up coming over one day without her. A month or two later, he's got a picture. Of course, he's showing that picture around of her, disrespecting her like that. She's good enough to take a picture for his little troll-looking self, and he's going to disrespect her by showing it around. So that was how it started. Implication. I'm not sure if anything actually happened between them. Probably not. I know a number of people who it's just like how people buy drinks for people at bar expect, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. There's a level to it. Now, eventually, she ends up moving in with this guy who's a dealer. Complete crash test dummy. I know this dude, he's an idiot. And she's living with this fool who is just crazy out of his mind, a terror to be around, just hateful man. And I can only imagine what she went through with that. See him in pass and everything else, and he just treats her like she's a piece of his property, which ultimately that's what she's pretty much become, living in this awful little apartment now. Grew up in a big house, nice well-to-do family, nice area. Now she's with this scumbag, And I say that, I was a dealer too, but there are people that are addicts and people that are dealers that aren't scumbags. Like to me, I didn't sell to people that I felt like it was ruining their life. I quit dealing with them. Number one, it was hard to watch. I'd been down gutter and I hated seeing that. But number two, that's a higher risk type of people. So it puts a dealer at risk. It's just talking about it in retrospect for what it was. It's a higher risk bunch of people. So ultimately, you hear stuff about, how much worse it's getting and everything else. And I end up getting arrested, going to jail for a year. And I get out. And I heard it's gotten a whole lot worse. That it's gone from, that to actual putting herself up on Craigslist, going around place to place. And, it's hard to hear. And, you see pictures of somebody back when I used to use Facebook, you see pictures of certain people. There's a weird phenomenon with drug addicts that will put pictures of themselves up because they start losing weight. You don't lose fat. You don't get shredded and ripped. When you starve yourself, you become a smaller, fatter version of yourself. You lose a lot of the muscle. Something I learned, like if you watch that Naked and Afraid show where they go out in the middle of a jungle and they don't eat for 30 days, they measure their body composition. They lose 30 pounds, and usually about 15 to 18 of it is muscle. So it's not, but people think they look good and they put these pictures of themselves online and you can see the bones in their face. They think because they've lost weight. Maybe somebody used to have a little extra baby fat, a little extra weight on them, but now because they're skinny they think they look good. And they put these pictures online and they're looking rough. And I saw, and it was hard to look at, hard to see. So, I'm not around that type of people. I'm not doing any of that. I stayed completely clean the 2 years I was out on bond. I did drug court and did right during that time. Now, after I was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, I had 5 months to self-surrender, at which time I did talks at a number of places, from outpatient rehabs, inpatient rehabs, a Saturday school kids program to that for kids that got in trouble. Like if a kid gets caught with alcohol or smoking weed in the bathroom, they'd have to go to the Saturday school program. I'd talk to them for 2 hours. I'd talk to their parents 2 hours separately. And I'd be real with them about it. I wouldn't be like, Bubba's going to get that butt. I'd be like, listen, it sucks. There's one TV for 50 people, 2 showers. Imagine the most annoying person in your life. Imagine there are 5 of that person in one room and you can't ever get away from them. It sucks. I'd let them know all the little things that are just annoying and about how it's time you can't get back and how it's just, and instead of saying, the scare tactics that some people do, like all that scared straight stuff, a lot of that don't work. The stuff that's more real, like, listen, The food sucks. They literally cook it a week ahead of time and flash cook it at the regional jail. I tell them about that. Tell them about if you don't have money sent to you. And I do let them know. If you're cool, quiet, it probably won't have any problems. And there was one specific one, this one specific time that kept asking me, well, I think they should legalize weed. And I'm like, well, I do too, but in this state it's still legal. So until then, you better start doing some push-ups, because you got a mouth on you, and if you do go to jail, something bad's probably going to happen to you for running that mouth. Everybody laughed at him and got him to shut up. There's always one person. I'm just trying to talk real. I'm not trying to scare anybody. And I'm talking with them, answering questions back and forth, just being real with them. I'm not like, you better straighten up. I'm like, listen, I get it. I was sitting there getting talked to too, and I thought, whatever. Because when people make such absurd threats and stuff, kids see through that. They're like, well, I'm not scared. Make it a tough thing. But when you talk about the nagging, annoying stuff, they listen. So anyway, I'm doing these talks at these different places. This girl is at an outpatient rehab when I give my talk. That was the last time I saw her. I remember I spoke to her, gave her a hug, told her good luck. And I heard while I was in prison that she passed away. She passed away from an overdose, and she's no longer with us. It's incredibly sad. This was like one of my best friends in middle school. Of course, as we got older, and I, moved, because I had to move because I was dealing, had to move. I was getting ready to get in trouble, so I had to go live with my aunt. There's a whole crazy another set of stories with that. But, keep bumping back into each other occasionally. Each time we bumped back into each other, it was, you just see somebody get worse and worse and worse. Even in that outpatient rehab, it was hard to see somebody that you once knew as something go down that low, as I did. I did the same thing, and I bounced back. I've had 44 friends pass from overdose, and it's sad and it sucks. It's hard to watch, it's hard to see. Not a lot of people, that I've known have bounced back from it. This being one of the ones that won't get a chance to. It's too late. It's something that can't be reversed, And anyway, I got a lot more stories on this one. This one was a little bit more, one that's harder for me to drone on talking about, because it upsets me. Some of them I look at and I'm like, well, you become kind of a little bit numb to it. Like, well, okay, well, if you do drugs, that's what happens. After, somewhere around 30, I think that's when I started to feel that way. But there are some people that you're close with that really bugs you, that really hit you when you think about and when you talk about. Never went out with her, never had a relationship, nothing like that. But like a best friend from when you were little, and then you just keep seeing back and forth. And she was a good person. She was a sweet person. She was funny. Great person. And you see them get used up by this sick, disgusting world of awful people. It was hard to watch. It was hard to watch every different time. And you got to keep it together, because sometimes your facial expressions can say it all. I saw it sometimes, particular, can think of a couple people close to family that when they saw me, I could see the expression on their face that, man, what's happening? It looks like stuff's going rough for you. And I had to try to keep that from going, and I was involved in that stuff. So, who am I to tell somebody you need to get together when I'm out there doing some of the same stuff? But anyway, if you like the video, press the like button. If not, I understand. This one's a little bit not as happy of a topic. Something to think about, though. Personal advice I give to people, and I talk to a lot of families. Sasha's shaking the camera, I'm sorry. But when I tell people that ask me what to do with a kid that's on drugs, I don't tell them to ever kick them out of the house. That is when the most dangerous stuff can happen. I tell them, put them in a psych ward. It's a 3 to 5 day hold. From there, tell them to get in a rehab, do an intervention, threaten them, give them a choice. Listen, you got paraphernalia in your room. We're going to have a cop come over, make you go to jail for it, or you can go to a rehab. Get them put somewhere where there's an intervention that gives them time to think. It took me 5 months to think, sitting in a jail cell. Ultimately, with enough time, you might realize, what I'm doing isn't working out too well. But man, when people get kicked out, that is when I've seen the worst stuff happen. I've seen people not come back from it. I've seen people go to prison. One of my friends who robbed pharmacy got 17 years. Never had a traffic ticket. 17 years his first time. But when people get kicked out, I know sometimes, people don't know what to do. This is just my personal advice that I give to certain people. Put an intervention in place of some sort, whether it be a psych ward, whether you have to get them locked up in jail. A minor jail stay is a lot better than them being gone forever, or them getting decades in prison. It's hard for family to think about putting somebody in jail, and of course that seems like the ultimate betrayal by that person. But with the alternatives, with the possibilities, I've seen what happens the same day that people get kicked out. The same day that people get kicked out, they don't have anywhere to go. Nobody will let them in. They're desperate. And they're going through withdrawals possibly. They're willing to do whatever. And a lot of times for guys, that means violence. A lot of times for girls, it's not good. And that's just something, Anyway, if you liked it, press the like button.